Good evening and welcome to a Nevada Irrigation District Candidate Forum, hosted by Nevada County Media, UBNet, KNCO, and KVMR radio stations, and the Union. I'm Brian Hamilton with the Union, and I appreciate you all joining us for this discussion with the candidates for the NID Board seats in Divisions 3 and 5. I want to thank our media partners for participating in this important forum as we prepare voters to vote on the members of this board. The Nevada Irrigation District is governed by a 5-member board of directors, elected to 4-year terms by district voters. The board is the district's policy-making body, and the policy is carried out by its dozens of full and part-time employees. NID has faced and expects to face a good deal of change moving forward. As has been discussed, mitigating the impact of climate change on our snowpack, our natural reservoir in the Sierra, is a top priority for the district. In 2018, 3 new board members were elected. 2 more seats are up for this election. Another change will include the hiring of a new general manager by the board, likely 2 of 4 members here tonight. Considering all this change, we felt the need for further discussion of the district and those vying to lead its election this season, this election season, which brings us here tonight. Let's first welcome members of the media panel: Pascale Fusshoeller of UBNet, Paul Emery of KVMR, Paul Haas of KNCO, Cole Pettit of Nevada County Media, and yours truly, Brian, for the Union. And now we welcome our candidates. In Division 3, Karen Hull and Scott Miller, and in Division 5, Rich Johansen and John Norton. Each question addressed to all candidates will be limited to a 1-minute response. Questions to specific candidates will allow for a 2-minute response. We thank the candidates in advance for adhering to those rules. We'd rather not interrupt, but if necessary, we will out of fairness to all candidates. Each candidate will now have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. And up first is Karen.
Thank you. So many thanks to the Union and all of the members of the media who supported this debate. I'm starting by talking about at the last debate, I spoke about the financial challenges at NID. Expenses rising faster than revenue, and the incumbents supporting an approach that solves this problem by raising rates. I have a different approach. We must control wasteful spending, and I have 2 examples of this. The first is the E. George Water Treatment Plant, which has a capacity of 18 million gallons of water per day. This is 3.5 times more water than we actually are using. And it reflects a gross oversizing of the infrastructure, and that oversizing will not be taken up by growth in Nevada County anytime soon. Decades of thank you. So that's one example where the increase in the infrastructure has an impact on dropping reserves and really increasing our rates. Another example is in the $19 million redundant pipeline that's proposed for Penn Valley. And the incumbent supports this project based on the fact that it's in Division 5, and the Division 5 board member needs to have his turn to have a project. And I think this is generally called cronyism. And it lacks strategic thinking about what is in the best interest of the district. As a board member, I will not make decisions based on whose turn it is to fund a project, and I will be looking out to minimize projects that are oversizing growth within the district. Thank you.
And Scott.
Thank you, NC Media. I appreciate this forum to speak. I'm a 20-year incumbent, and I'm proud of my service to this community. I'm proud that NID is cleaning mercury out of Lake Combe. I'm proud that NID expanded treated water lines and fire hydrants in South County. There was a need for people with failing wells, and I listened. We have 400 new customers and 200 new fire hydrants along these extended lines in several neighborhoods. Now, I'll take credit for these policies in a political forum, and I did directly create many of the policies that have benefited South County. In reality, it was a team effort with the full board and NID staff. I brought the voice of the people by representing. It was the people trying to use NID's policies that told me what needed to be changed. So as your representative, I work collaboratively to evolve NID policies with solid success. Now I hear my constituents concerned with fire, the climate, and our water future. I will continue to fight to preserve and perfect NID's water rights, protecting our water from the state and the Delta tunnels. Centennial Reservoir is the vehicle. The reservoir will be a 7-mile fire break, immediately upstream from LOP and Combi Lake. The reservoir uses our remaining water rights and thus protects them. The water storage protects our children's and grandchildren's water future for the next 100 years. I ask for your vote to continue to work to complete Centennial Reservoir. Thank you.
And Rich?
Yeah. Brian, thank you. Thanks for this forum. My name is Rich Johansen. I'm running for NID Director, Division 5. A little bit about me. Born in Northern California, raised. 4th generation California farmer. I'm a local organic farmer, businessman. Currently on the Nevada County Planning Commission as Vice Chair. Prior to that, I was about 16 years, I was on the Nevada County Agricultural Advisory Commission and chaired that for about 5 years. I've been on the Land Trust, president for 2 years. That experience has given me a unique insight into this county. My roots in this county go way back. My great-grandfather came here 1854. My grandfather was born here. Grandparents met here. I have a passion for Nevada County. And what really drives Nevada County is the water. And we have an outstanding irrigation district in NID. It's the 2nd largest in the state, which makes it about the 2nd largest in either the 5th or 6th largest economy in the world. I'm also a veteran. From 1972 to 74, I was in the Peace Corps in South America. I have a degree in agriculture economics and business management, and I've operated my businesses for several decades. So I just want to say I have a unique balance of talents. And one of those, I farmed through 2 of the worst droughts California's ever seen and survived as a farmer. A lot of guys didn't. Thank you for having this.
And John?
Thank you. I'm John Norton, and if you live in western Grass Valley, Penn Valley, Rough and Ready, or Lake Wildwood, or any area in between, I am your candidate for Nevada Irrigation District Division 5. I've been very concerned about NID's health for the past several years, and I hope you will find my background and experience fit the challenges ahead for NID. NID has been neglecting its aging infrastructure. It's been raising rates on a continuous basis, and it's spending its reserves to balance the books. This is unsustainable. I have a passion for water resources protection and public service. That's why I enjoyed working for the State Water Board for 28 years. I enjoyed solving major water problems there. After retirement, I have continued to enjoy protecting our watersheds in Nevada County through volunteer work. And I've also was appointed to the NID Board of Directors in 2008 as an interim director. I would like to pledge to NID's water users that I will ensure that they will have a safe, affordable, and reliable water supply. I want to do that by doing 3 things. 1, I want to make sure that the aging water treatment plants, canals, and pipelines are properly maintained. 2nd, I want to push to control rate increases. And 3rd, I want to restore NID's fiscal strength and reserves. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Now it'll be the first round of questions from the media. These questions will allow for a 1-minute response. And first question is coming from Paul Haas from KNCO, and the first answer will come from Scott Miller.
Good evening, candidates. We're going to jump right into budget. In the 2021 budget adopted last week heavily relies on deferred maintenance and repairs to achieve $5.1 million in reduced expenditures. Besides creating a potential backlog, safety of NID's infrastructure and personnel could also be compromised. NID's own finance manager stated, quote, "Reductions in fiscal budgets of this magnitude are not sustainable," end quote. What is your take on the 2021 budget?
Thank you for the question. The budget is a team sport. Staff and the board working together through all committees and departments to plan our financial course. The budget is in, and we adopted it last week, as you all mentioned, September 23rd. COVID hit us hard, but our $97 million in reserves kept the district strong. We did not budget for COVID last October. You got us. 20 years, I've never had a negative budget. We did this last year. 2020 was the only negative year in the last 20 years. Next year, we are already back in the black with returning of $3 million into the reserves. We did modify things this time as a team and got it down to $6 million that we had to transfer. That's why the reserves exist. With the loss of interest income on our $97 million of reserves this year and recreation taking a big hit with closures and customer refunds, we had to tap our reserves for the $6 million. Despite that, we could hit Standard & Poor's still rated us AA+, and we're able to refinance $26 million just this last month from the Combi, which is a huge infrastructure need that we took care of. Anyway, COVID hit us, and but we're back in the black next year.
Thank you. Rich?
Yeah. So it's not sustainable if we keep going to the property taxes. Property taxes should only fund capital improvements infrastructure, such as the Backbone Extension Program. So, yeah, it's a one-year blip. Should have had more reserves. But Standard & Poor's has raised the credit rating to AA+ from AA-, and any AA is in really good shape. So going forward, the budget for next year looks doable, looks sustainable, with a $3 million increase in the reserves. So I don't think NID is in that bad a financial condition. We just got to, watch the expenses, find more revenue where we can.
And John?
Thank you. Well, the 2021 budget is very austere, and I can see why the NID board adopted that. It is not sustainable, and that was said so by the operations manager, Chip Close, and also by the chief financial officer. It's not sustainable because they are risking their aging infrastructure by deferring maintenance and deferring certain projects that need to be going on. That's one of my major concerns. I think it's important to have an austere budget and bring up those reserves that are desperately needed, but at the same time we need to prioritize what aging infrastructure could fail and cause a catastrophic failure, such as a failure of a water treatment plant delivering drinking water to 7,000 people in Lake Wildwood and Penn Valley. Thank you.
And Karen?
So I think that this is another example where NID management is raising red flags about the fiscal situation in NID, and they've been doing this for a number of years. I agree with Rich that the spending of $22 million in property tax revenue, which is reflective in the projected budget going forward, that is money that historically would have been used to support the infrastructure. So that's a serious movement of funds. I would also point out that the projected budget shows a 34% rate increase in the coming 5 years. And so, in my opinion, we have to work with NID management to get control of expenses, or we are going to have more serious problems that aren't being grappled with at the current time.
Okay. And our next question will come from Cole Pettit of Nevada County Media.
Thank you for joining us tonight, candidates. There have been a number of changes so far this year, one of them being Rem Scherzinger resigning after nearly 8 years in the role. NID will now be tasked with hiring a new general manager. As a member of the board, what specific skills and areas of expertise would you be seeking in hiring the district's new leader?
And we'll go to Rich first on this.
All right. Well, I think you're going to have to have a strong fiscal financial background. You're going to have a very strong water background and knowledge of what's going on in the state water-wise. The team that's there right now is in pretty good shape. Look, we got a lot of great managers, middle managers. So we just need someone to collaborate with them, lead them. We got to realize we're not an island out here. There's a lot of people in this state want our water. And if you want names, I'll give them to you. But we have an incredible, invaluable resource, water and people in NID. Let's protect both. Let's encourage, promote both. And I think we'll be fine. We'll get a manager who'll do that.
And John, you next.
Thank you. I do believe one of the main things we need is a general manager with strong fiscal management skills. At the same time, we need a general manager that can help modernize NID. NID has 450 miles of canals that are operated by manpower running up and down, trying to maintain those. We have to look for opportunities to become more efficient and save money that way and be more reliable in our water delivery. There has to be many opportunities to modernize NID, and I believe that's one of the main traits I would be looking for. Thank you.
And Karen, you're next.
One of the most important things besides the fiscal experience of leading an organization through change and transition is someone who's a collaborator, someone who works well with our community, that has excellent communication skills, ability to listen and hear public perspectives, as well as facilitate a positive working relationship with the board. So fiscal background, number one, but that also the effective communicator and problem solver. They have to have good leadership skills. NID is a 222 employee organization, so being able to lead that organization positively forward. And then focus on modernizing the infrastructure. I think we have some pretty antiquated ways of managing our operation, and we need to have someone who brings in a more current way of managing and supporting technology in our organization.
Thank you. And Scott.
Yeah, all excellent points, and just what we have we're still doing a selection of a search company at this point, is where we're at. We've done that before, and it is an interesting process. They're all individuals, people, and it's interesting to see who they are. And you take the variety. Ron Nelson got us through the FERC, and then REM helped us with the hydro interface and bringing in those revenues. So excellent people all. Even Jim Chatney, he was a bit the colonel, ran it his way. But yeah, open to communication and financially sound, to be sure. I mean, it's a team sport on the budget, and it's driven by staff. So.
Great, thank you. And our next question will come from Paul Emery of KVMR.
Thanks to all of you for your devotion to public service comment. Okay, from your statements at the League of Women Voters Forum, climate change appears to be an area of concern for all of you. Now, do you see any other ways of improving our water storage without building a reservoir? And what would be the estimated cost versus water gained with the alternative solutions and other positive negatives associated with those solutions?
this is more than a minute. I'm sorry. Just-
Would everyone like to agree to 2 minutes on this question? We have time.
Or more.
All right, let's do 2 minutes. And John, you're up first.
Thank you. The recent reports, the technical memorandum put together by NID, examine the hydrology in our watershed over the next 50 years, including climate change. And it showed that we have adequate water in the hydrology of the area coming down. And what will happen with climate change is the snowpack will become less and the rain will become more, but the amount of water will remain somewhat the same. So we have reservoirs that can capture that water now, and we will have enough supply that way. Those technical reports looked at our next 50 years, and under average conditions, we had adequate water supply, even under climate change. The only way they could find that we didn't have adequate water supply was by a 5-year drastic drought situation. It was found out in our recent review with the board that they used the wrong drought situation, and they have to correct that to use what was the guidelines from the state government. Once they do that, I will see that we will have adequate storage. Now, I do think we should look at other alternatives besides just a reservoir. We can look at meadow restoration, forest thinning practices. We can remove sediment from reservoirs. We can keep sediment from going into reservoirs. These are all things that we have to evaluate and compare against a new reservoir. Thank you.
And Karen.
So I agree with everything that John just said. I think some of the other specific things that we could pursue include raising Rawlins Reservoir to create more storage capacity, removing sediment from reservoirs, and NID has done some work on that, so we can continue that effort. I think there are opportunities for regional partnerships in how we manage water, and I think PCWA offers a good case study with this in their integration of water management practices within a greater Sacramento area. And we can do the same, but with a focus more around Lincoln. The other area is around forest health and meadow restoration, and that recent information from the Farm Bureau actually reports that you can have 10% savings, or you can have additional 10% of watershed flows by supporting meadow restoration and forest health. It also reduces the risk of catastrophic fire. And the other thing that I think we can do is modernize our practices related to canals and create more technologically based systems to manage flow and reduce tailwater loss.
Thank you. And Scott, you're up next.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things we can do. Many of these are very de minimis. We're actually already doing the English Meadow above Jackson Meadows up there. We're doing it, meadow restoration. It might yield 3,000 acre feet. We're doing the dredging, getting the mercury out of Combi, and we're doing the Greenhorn as it comes into Rawlins. You may get back 10,000 acre feet. It is hugely expensive. I had one of the staff at the time, I said, do the calculation. It was like 40,000 an acre foot. I mean, I'm throwing numbers out there, but it was, with the reservoir, much more efficient. The cost of scale, the economy of scales for the trying to dredge out the reservoirs and get them. We're still doing that, and we're trying to get the mercury remediated. The precipitation, we're back on a 2014. This is just our records that we keep. We literally are losing half the snowpack, and that is literally the equivalent of the functional capacity of Rawlins, 60,000. I thought we were going 2 minutes.
One more minute.
The forest thinning is wonderful. We're doing it in Scotts Flat. We own, I always say staff corrected me on that. We only own less than 50,000. It's like 30,000 acres. So the vast majority of SPI, the forests are SPI and the Bureau of Land Management, Forest Service. So de minimis in what we can actually do it, and we're doing it at Scotts Flat. So the big one is, but it kind of came and went with this PG&E thing. We've always said, as a board, nobody really ever asks us these things. What we're stuck with is what we know is our reservoirs. Let's do that, and let's be proactive for the future. But we're PG&E to give up the drum Spalding. We could take all that storage. It's not much less expensive, but we could take that over. Hasn't really worked itself out. We've kept our options open while we're working on a plan to have a reservoir to solve the problem.
Thank you.
So, sorry.
And Rich.
It was a good
Brian,
subject.
thank you. So, yeah, meadow restoration, reforestation, all for it. I don't think it's going to bring in the gain of water that we really need. It's very expensive, but it has other benefits of fire protection. Raising Rollins, I hear you have to shut it down for a while. What are you going to do for a reservoir? And it's about a 3-year project.
And you get 10,000.
For myself, I put off-site storage. I have about a 4.5 acre pond. I use that for irrigation on my drip lines. I also use it for fire protection. I also created wildlife habitat with it. So in there you had several different things: fire protection, conservation, and off-site reservoir. What I'm hearing on encasing the 450 miles is very expensive, $2 to $3 billion, and it comes right out of water rates. It doesn't come out of capital expenditures. Now, if we did it lined, we're in an irrigation that has lined it. That's also expensive to maintain. They have crews in there every winter. So how do we gain bang for our buck? And it really comes into more storage. And we're losing 110,000 acre-foot reservoir in the snowpack. That's what we're losing with climate change. So how do we replace? That's twice the size of Rollins, but the size of Centennial. So how do we replace that? And with the atmospheric rivers that we're going to get, the heavy 6 to 10 inch rainfalls, how are we going to catch that in our reservoirs? Because the snowpack would melt in June and July. Now it melts April, May. We can't catch it all.
Thank you. Now, at this portion of the forum, we're going to have individual candidates speak to individual questions from the media. And with these, you'll have 2 full minutes moving forward. And I'm going to go first, and I'm going to address my question to Rich Johansen. A recent op-ed published in the Union discussed the decades-old tar ditch easement water rights on your property, which provides you with an amount of water the writer claimed would typically cost ratepayers $2,000 to $3,000 per year. But you received that for around $70 per season due to the easement. The op-ed's author asked, how can Mr. Johansen represent potential customers or constituents with water rate increases if he doesn't have to pay them himself? How do you answer that question?
Brian, great question, thanks. Okay, so it's a legal contract. What the op-ed did not say, that it was adjudicated about 40 years ago, and NID won a big win on that court case, but there's a handful of landowners, and it goes with the land, it doesn't go with the landowner. So what will happen is that our water was never disconnected. So that contract, a legal contract, court-ordered, stays with the land. When I'm gone, fine. So what I have done is last year we grew an extra 12,000 pounds of produce and donated it to the Interfaith Ministry. That's our way of giving back. I've given back to NID by being on some committees. I also had some rock they needed for fixing a ditch, saving a bunch of money. The second thing is next year, a young couple is going to farm our place, and they will be the beneficiaries of that free water. From my military experience, I'm not going to ask somebody to do something I would not do myself or have not done. So as an NID director, if I vote a water rate increase, I will pay that. And I can do that without interfering with the legal agreement that we have with NID for the land. Now, I got to thank Mike Pasner for telling me that the land was available with that kind of contract, because it does make a difference. It makes it, you know, and when the young couple comes in to farm our place, they'll be farming 10, 12 acres. It'll give them a chance to make it financially.
Thank you much. And our next question will be asked by Pascale of Ubinet.
And this question is for Scott Miller. In your candidate statements, both for Nevada and Placer counties, you state that Centennial creates $50 million a year of green hydroelectricity to repay 50-year bonds. The final scoping report does not mention hydro or any type of electrical generation anywhere. You also say that the hydroelectric license is completed and NID realizes $23 million a year of new revenue, keeping NID strong. At the last board meeting, you voted to continue building reserves for the bonding of the FERC permanent license because the licensing process is not complete. The gross revenue of $23 million translates into approximately $8 million of net revenue. Can you clarify the statements about the hydro with Centennial and the bonds?
Like 4 questions in there.
Yep.
Right, do I get 12 minutes? So again, if you could, you're talking about hydro off of the...
You say that Centennial would create 15 million
so
in hydro.
that's a quote from the hydroelectric manager. We drop hydro on everything. Loma Rica, give us a 100-foot drop. We've been putting micro hydro. So we are utilizing our water rights under a consumptive. So thus it's the Corps of Army Engineers, not a FERC. We're not doing it as a hydro, but we're doing it, these are our water rights, and these are our consumptive water rights. That's the basis. But I asked ACOM in session when they gave us the presentation of the $270 million project construction back in 2017, whenever it was, and yeah, you put on, every dam is designed to be able to do hydro. We've been doing that throughout the district. Find us a drop, we put in micro hydro. So that's, and interesting, during the drought 2014, because it does come as atmospheric rivers, we spilled enough at Rollins in 2014, drought year, and we have video, and John Drew did it. It was a picture of all this, and we measure because we're always measuring. We spilled 100,000. When it goes to Combi, there is no volume. You know, she asked me 4 questions. It's not just on the one. 23 million, yes, that's what we're getting from the Rollins and all that, and our Bowman and these micros that we're putting in. You had other questions in there. I'm glad to talk about all this.
FERC, the FERC license, the licensing process.
Okay, so Nick Wilcox and I and Jeff Meath, who was our attorney at the time, we did the PPA, power purchase agreement. We nailed that in 2013. We're getting those monies now, come hell or high water, whether it's a wet year, dry year. Wet year, PG&E kind of wins. These dry years, which we've had many, we keep winning. So that's the lucrative, that's the solid 23 million. What was the question?
But the FERC, the licensing process
Oh,
is not
yeah.
complete.
So all that's coming right now. I'd circle in some people where it's all in the courts with the 401 certification. So we get this window of time. I was asked last time, why now? Oh my God, the cosmic tumblers are all falling in place with the interest rate low, with the 401 recertification thing, kind of putting all that out a couple years. It's a deliberate compliance. Nobody's asking us to do it at this time, so we have this window where we can actually be doing these things before those hit us. And that's over a 20-year.
Thanks,
it is
Scott.
front-loaded.
That's time.
She asked me for 5 questions. I'm sorry.
We'll get back to it.
Okay, right on.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, all excellent questions and legit.
Understand. And our next question is from Paul Haas of KNCO.
And this question is for Mr. Norton.
Thank you.
One of your stated priorities is to renovate the Lake Wildwood treatment plant. As a resident of Lake Wildwood, it's reasonable to consider that you could expect your property values to increase if the project goes through. So is there a potential conflict of interest? Would you abstain from a vote on the project, and why or why not?
Well, my priority was not to renovate the treatment plant. My priority, which I stated many times to the NID board, was to repair the existing treatment plant. They were going to go ahead with the backbone pipeline that was an 8-year, $19 million project and not do anything. The general manager even said that the Lake Wildwood treatment plant was at the end of its useful life, and they had engineering reports that detailed fixes that had to be done. So I raised this at the board meetings, I wrote letters to NID, and I got them to put $600,000 into the budget to repair that treatment plant. The renovation of the treatment plant that they have in the budget for 4 or 5 years out, I'm not so concerned with that. I'm concerned with the repairs now. And whether or not we need that renovation 3 or 4 years from now, we'll look at it then.
So on the vote part of the question, would you abstain from the vote or would you still participate in the vote?
I'd participate in the vote on that. I mean, I'm talking about maintaining an existing treatment plant that serves 7,000 people. This is not something to increase property values. This is to keep what we have operational and reliable and trustworthy. Because George capacity is what that's all about. It's like you use it one way but not both.
Thank you. Our next
You really did
question
have a plan.
is from Cole Pettit with Nevada County Media for Karen Hold.
So your candidate statement reads in part, I will ensure responsible fiscal management and cost control, revitalize NID's aged infrastructure through strategic and judicious investments, and secure future water availability through cost-effective, innovative approaches and modern technology. How do you propose to assert fiscal discipline and, at the same time, afford to revitalize infrastructure?
You know, that's a really good point, because we do have to do both of those things at the same time. And so on the cost control side, I do believe that there are plenty of opportunities for controlling cost that then in turn creates opportunities for investment. So as an example, NID has a history of oversizing the infrastructure in ways that isn't rationalized by growth in the county and the areas that we're serving. And these oversized infrastructures we can't recoup the investment for because our growth rate is so low in Nevada County. And so if we can control our investments and make them more judicious, I think we can continue to invest in the infrastructure. But bottom line is we've got to get control of the expense side of the house. I believe that our employees they live the life in a day of NID employees, and they have ideas about how to control costs, reduce red tape, eliminate bureaucracy, and wasteful spending. So I would want leadership to be working with staff to develop ways to really drive expenses down in our budget. The current budget for 2021 is really a stopgap measure. It's not sustainable. So we have to look fundamentally at the fundamentals of the business and get control of those expenses, reduce the operating costs so that we can continue to invest. Most of the capital expenditures are paid for with bond funding, and so we can continue to take out bond debt and continue to keep our infrastructure whole.
Thank you. We're now going back to everyone being involved in the questions. And with that, we are so far ahead of schedule. You guys are doing great. I would like to propose we go to 2-minute answers on these next questions as well, to give you a little more time, as some people have expressed that they would like to have. So
Thank you.
if that's okay with you?
Yeah.
Everybody's agreement on that? Very good. Our next question is from Paul Emery of KVMR.
NID announced its proposed Centennial Reservoir project 6 years ago as a way at several board meetings, and candidates have said to secure our water for future generations. But over the course of those 6 years, and while NID has spent millions on the project, there have been no clear plan on how the district would fund a project that could cost up to $1 billion. That's $1 billion. Has the district failed to be transparent with such information, or is this an indication the district does not really have a plan?
And Karen, you'll go first with this one.
Well, I would say that the district has not had a coherent plan. There is no reason to spend $14 million before you have foundational information supporting a project of this size and importance to the district. So at the last debate, I talked about how I have, a primary responsibility of any board member is to ensure that we have adequate water storage for the future. And I wholeheartedly support that. And so I think we have to have our minds open to all the options. NID has pursued Centennial Dam as a singular solution to a very complex issue, and that I don't like. They did complete, as I understand it, a study on supply, demand, and hydrology quite some time ago, but that report was not released to the public, and nor was it shared with all board members. I do not support that kind of methodology for a project. As we've mentioned, we spent $14 million buying land and conducting studies that really aren't getting at the heart of it, and that is the study that was just released in August, and that study is faulty in many ways and has been sent back to the consultants for rework. So bottom line is I don't think we've pursued the project in the way that would be most appropriate. I think we've also created a serious wedge in our community where none was required. I think we have to give some value to the people whose homes are inundated by the reservoir, to the loss of Native American sites, and to the recreation that we are losing through that project. And we don't hear much conversation about that.
Thank you. And Scott?
Repeat the question, please. Yeah, if it's right there.
Okay. Repeat the whole question.
Well, two people have now spoken, and I kind of
Okay.
wanted to read the question again.
Well, the question is that NID has announced, I'll try to paraphrase it, its reservoir project 6 years ago, and several board members and candidates have said that to secure our water for future generations. But over the course of those 6 years, while NID has spent millions on the project, there appears to be no clear plan as to how the district would fund a project that could be up to $1 billion. And the essence of the question, has the district failed to be transparent with such information, or is this an indication that the district doesn't have a plan?
So indeed, these are public documents. Went back to the ACOM. It's on the website even. You go to projects, current, and it's funny that it's current because it's kind of on hold, but you go in there and it's got the whole layout of the design as well as the cost and the construction costs. But I do want to step back on my 2 minutes with these other guys. These two keep going on about, E. George is too big. The economy of scale of having E. George that large and that powerful and not having to maintain with all the regulations and whatnot and personnel, we would be able to eliminate Smartsville and Wildwood. So right there, that was the plan, and that's why we were doing the BEP down there. Similarly, we do have a plan here on the reservoir. It basically, $256 million for the dam is listed with its opportunities, and then $54 million for the bridge, the new Dog Bar Bridge. 2-lane, bicycle lanes, Native American museum under one end, and access to our own lake launch on the other end. And it's the bonds. Right now, everything, when you get up into your $1 billion discussion, it never really gets there, but if you were at 5%, you could almost fudge it up to about $750 million, $750 million. I've always said, more of a $500,000. Indeed, at 2%, and right now the bonds are even lower than that, but at 2%, it's kind of like when I said 50,000 acre feet. I don't like to speak in extremes. It would only be 186 million in interest over, and you get your choice between 30 and 50 years. We could go 50. You get a lower payback if you do it in 30. This is what the board does moving forward. We're agile, we work as a team, and we do decision making as we go. And yeah, next year's budget is tight. We're back in the black, and the rate package isn't in for 22 through 26. But yeah, no, that's the plan, has always been. And then the hydro on the front, and that's 15 million a year times 30 years, you get to 450 million.
Time.
So right there, it pencils out.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Rich Johansen.
good question.
All right. Yeah, excellent question. Gets to the part of it. So NID, I think, realized early what was happening with the climate change, losing the snowpack, the 110,000 acre feet, looking for something to catch that at a mid, some reservoir that will catch that at a mid-level elevation. So in looking at alternatives, sedimentation is very expensive and it does not add real water to the system. If you build a 100,000 acre foot dam and you have 15% sedimentation, it's never 100,000 minus 15%. Shasta's always 4.4 million acre feet. So we're actually worse off than we were stating on storage. So I have a different opinion of what the Water Supply Analysis Technical Manual said from HDR. HDR is a very highly respectable consulting firm and does this national-wide. So what they said is that even 1 year, a wet year following a dry year, or let's say a dry year following a wet year, which happens by 5.6, every 5.6 years, we really don't, we're in drought. I've been on the drought contingency, the hardship contingency committee, and we were looking at that, and let me tell you, we're running out of water a lot faster than anybody thinks. Even with 0% growth, we do not have enough water to provide a dependable water supply to our customers unless we create more storage. And right now, the only game in town seems to be Centennial. And people are lined up, it's on radar screen of a lot of different agencies.
Thank you. And Mr. Norton.
Thank you. If I can recall the question correctly, they were asking, has NID been transparent about their reports and what they have been doing with Centennial Dam? And they absolutely have not. I mean, we hear about secret reports and only a few people are given access to look at those, including the HDR reports that were prepared a couple of years ago, and we finally got to see them last month. And does NID have a plan that includes the financing here, or what the economics? I've never heard of one, and I've never seen one. And it would seem to me that if you're making this size of an investment, you have to have an economic plan. This is a huge business venture, potentially $1 billion business venture, and you should have an economic plan for developing that. And you should be able to tell the ratepayers in the district what the impact to them is. And just to give you an idea of what the impact is, if we just look at what's going on right now, they just adopted a budget for 2021, and then they have a 5-year plan. Within that, they increased rates at 7% each year after. That totals at 39%. Right now, the agricultural community has come to NID and said, we can't afford your rates now without the 39%, and they're going to need a subsidy. How in the world are they going to be able to afford adding a dam on top of it? We're going to run agriculture right out of business, and we're going to run homeowners out of business. And by the way, the treated water customers that use less than 10% get no benefit from the dam at all. They have plenty of water into the future under any scenario you could possibly look at. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next question is coming from me via a reader, however. In NID's petition for water rights for Centennial Dam sent to the California Water Board, NID clearly states that the place of use of 221,000 acre feet of diverted Bear River water includes 2.5 million acres on the floor of the Sacramento and San Joaquin valleys. Also, in the storage integration study that NID helped produce, it reads, releases from Centennial to the American River may also help conserve storage in Shasta, and contribute water supply benefits to the Central Valley Project and the State Water Project system, including in areas that rely on Delta exports. Releases down the Bear River are integrated with both the Central Valley Project and State Water Project and shared among the projects. Are you aware of these statements in the documents? And do you believe the general public would support or be opposed to sending Bear River water to the San Joaquin Valley? And we'll start with Scott.
Okay, you can't get it to there. There's no conveyance, first of all. So this other discussion with how PCWA does it, they are connected to Folsom. Ours, there's no capacity. We were trying to even see if during the drought, we were going to try and sell some water to Contra Costa County, and there's no conveyance. You just can't get the volume there. And so I'm not sure which document you're quoting. I mean, you said them, but there was really no way to get it there, and we're not looking to do so. That becomes the state's document where they want it for those doggone tunnels, and that's how you get it to South Delta and pump it down to San Joaquin. There's just no conveyance. It's one of the problems when we go to Aqua, and that's, again, I've been going to Aqua meetings. I always go to the climate ones all these many years. It's interesting. The little fatties they're growing in the rice fields when they flood them, and they're all kind of related to what I enjoy. They've been saying for years, we're not going to huddle in the dark and get back into our caves, but we need to invest in infrastructure to keep ourselves adapting to what climate change is coming. So that's what that has been. But the big thing with Aqua is, no conveyance. There's not really a marketing system for water because you cannot. It's choked with what is there is already being used by the Central Valley Project. So, that's a state document where they want it, and that's their justification, getting it in those tunnels and taking it away. We can't get it there. We don't want to. State wants to come take it, they can pay us for it. But that's, we get it. Now what we can do is enhance the flows in Auburn Ravine, where the salmon are trying to come up, where we're taking out structures, our gauging structure, where we're going to get hemp hill out of it. It's kind of cool. I've said it before, we take the pressure off the top. Atmospheric rivers, it comes as rain. We're mid-alpine, we'd catch it. As I say, 2014, we could have filled it even in the drought. Takes less pressure, more goes to where the fish really are, over there on the Yuba.
Thank you.
Nobody wants to hear that. Caleb knew it.
Rich, your turn.
That is more of a state document, but it does allow some out of district sales. NID sells out of district right now, Nevada City, Grass Valley, sometimes the South Sutter. Centennial was part of the Central Valley Water Project back in July 15, 1927. Shasta, Oroville. It was called Parker. That site was located. So this is more, I think, more of a requirement from the state to put that language in there. 2,500,000 acres, maybe Northern California. There's 5 million acres in San Joaquin Valley. 20% of that will be fallow because of lack of water. 500,000 currently, 500,000 to come. So I think it's a question about nothing, really. And you talk about let's talk about a financial, because I'm going to tag on this. The Western Water Storage Infrastructure Act of December 16, 2016 was signed by then President Barack Obama. It is currently, every year it's been bipartisan support. This year it's going to be funded by $800 million. This is, you were looking for some money for this project? Yes. There's a congressman in the San Joaquin Valley who wants, you say, hey, we've located 4 projects for our local farmers. And I can count a couple of them. Am I for sending water south to San Joaquin? Never. I'm a beneficiary of someone who would sell water to me, but would not ship it during the drought to San Joaquin Valley, even though they were willing to pay $2,000 an acre foot. It cost me $500.
Thank you.
All right.
And John.
Well, to answer your question, I have read that document and I've seen those words, and those words were filled in by the general manager, Rem Scherzinger, and signed by him and submitted to the state for an application showing that it was his intent that that project, Centennial Project, would be delivering water to the Delta. And I'm personally opposed to us building a dam for, out-of-district sales of water to pay for the dam. It doesn't make any sense to me. And first of all, it's going to be a burden on existing ratepayers, and the whole district could collapse under the weight of this. I think that would be a huge mistake to go forward with that plan that he signed. Thank you.
Thank you. And Karen?
Thank you. So I am aware of that document, and I'm aware that REM paid to participate in that study. I concur that I don't believe our community would support funding a dam and then sending the water out of district, given the implications of having to finance the project and the destruction of some treasured area of river that we have. I do want to just touch on the finances, because right now we are not in a position to build the dam. So holding out a 2% interest rate, I think, is really, it's fanciful. If you look at NID's projected budget going forward for the next 5 years, the CEO of NID indicates that we need to borrow $83 million to comply with the FERC relicensing project. And so they cite 4% interest. So that is the operative number to be looking at for what it costs to finance this $500 million dam. And that amounts to $500 million in debt service over 40 years, or $25,000 per year in debt service. That has a phenomenal impact to the district when our budget is only, it's $90 million a year. So $25 million in additional debt service. The other implication, I want to reinforce a point John made. When NID did the analysis for this project, they have never completed that they provided to the public the financial impact, how we're going to fund it, how does it affect our ability to support other projects, and that is a huge omission that until that is clarified, I think that the project cannot go forward.
Thank you. And our next question is from Pascale of UBNet.
So considering that NID does not have an approved project for Centennial, there's also no plans on how to fund it, what funding mechanisms there are, and there's been no indication that of any state or federal support. In fact, the state said zero benefit for the public. In your opinion, did the district put the cart before the horse when, with all those real estate acquisitions, that several $1 million, and also that's a practice that the district says it ended in August of 2019. In your opinion, was that, cart before the horse? Rich?
Okay, thank you, Pascal. So in my mind, there's no question that we need more storage. And the big question, I agree, is how do you finance that large a dam? Did they do their due diligence and protect their application, water rights application with the state? Yes. Now, the NID currently owns 70% of the footprint they need for that reservoir at that site. If we go back to Garden Bar Reservoir, South Sutter Irrigation District with some other cities, they were going to put in a much larger 400,000 acre reservoir there. I was definitely against that. That would have taken our water out of our community. They would have taken our water rights, that they could store it. They made a tactical, administrative error NID jumped on that and filed to protect the Ware River, our water rights in that Bear River. So, yeah, I'm not too concerned. The fact I think they paid what, $7 million for that land. With the land rush we have right now coming up from the Bay Area and everybody wanting to get out of the city, that land is a lot more valuable today. So if the reservoir does not go through, we're going to recoup our money. If for some reason we cannot perform on building that dam, trust me, someone will build it. The Department of Water Resources has just sued the rest of California to put the tunnels in. They're going right to revenue bonds. And you have until the end of October to respond. That's a very aggressive move on their part. They want our water, and they'll take it wherever they can. I don't trust the state of California.
Thank you. And John, you're next.
Okay. Thank you. You would think that when you're going to build a project of this size, that you would have it totally scoped out. You would know how much water's yield is and how much water we need. They just released draft documents a few weeks ago so that we can start to analyze how much water we need. That's going to go through a long process. They have not started looking at the finances of this. They have not looked at, where this water would be used, Central Valley or wherever. And they went ahead and they started buying property. I think if this was a private enterprise and they came up with a great idea that was going to make their investors money, they would have got out there and said, we have the best thing since sliced bread here. Here's what it's going to do, here's what it's going to cost, and here's how we're going to do it. NID did everything behind closed doors, and they didn't do all their homework. That's why it's in trouble now. They need to do their homework. They should have never bought that property. And in terms of the property values down there, they're depressed because of NID's buying that property. It caused reverse condemnation on those properties and decreased their value. And I don't know if they will ever come back again. It may be many years. Thank you.
Thank you. And Karen, your turn.
I absolutely believe the cart was put before the horse here. We still don't really have a clearly defined project need, a project plan, a full evaluation of all alternatives to Centennial Dam, and we need to approach this with an open mind. I'm not an expert in all of these areas, but I know that if we approach this with an open mind, we will see opportunities. There has been a singular approach by NID. They decided that we had to have the dam. They didn't have any justification for it other than that, they wanted more storage. Okay, so, but we don't have the analysis on the demand until a month ago. That report is flawed, has to be sent back to the consultants. We don't have the financial analysis, and clearly, when you're going to invest $1 billion of ratepayer money, you have to have that as foundation before you proceed. So, and we know that the properties in that area have not increased in value. They have all been devalued. People can't sell their property now because a lot of people don't want to be in that area of the proposed reservoir. So absolutely, cart before the horse, poor planning, a lack of transparency with the public, all unnecessary if we would have started by doing our homework first.
Thank you. Scott, your turn.
So the history of it is not that necessarily. The Garden Bar project was moving forward, and they petitioned the state, and we protested back. protest to the State Water Board, and we won, because we were senior. The state doesn't let you just claim it and then not use it. So that's where this process began, that we had to then start, all right, bam, now that we've inserted ourselves as the senior water right holder when this other project was there, that's what's up. The state would love to get them back, get the water back, and in fact, the recreation question you asked, that whole process, we applied because there were available monies, but they tied it to 10,000, I'd have to look at the document, 10,000 acre feet. And we said, no, we're not going to participate. So that's why they found us to have no recreational value. It was an administrative way they said it, but basically we didn't agree to the deal. And yeah, the buying of the property, a funny deal. I, there at the Veterans Hall, tried to put a cap on things, trying to hear people. And this is one of the things that disillusioned REM a little bit. And then Circle sued us for that. So then, whatever somebody mentioned, August of the year, that was still me. That was in the administrative practices, and we came back with a $600,000 cap while we were catching up. So, yeah, it is what it is. That's how it all got triggered, protecting our own water rights. And then by doing so, you have to then use them, because now you've highlighted it. So,
Thank you. And our next question is from Paul Haas of KNCO.
All right. It's come up a couple times tonight specifically about Centennial and transparency, but there's been other criticisms, and there has been statements that the district NID has come in making progress in regards to transparency in other areas, such as providing access to meeting videos and things like that. What areas do you see need more transparency, and what would you do to make that happen?
And let's start with John on this one.
Thank you. Well, I think it's great that NID has this video system that we can go back and review things that were said at previous meetings in the archive. It was quite a struggle by groups in the media to get NID to do that, but now that they've done it, it's wonderful. I think areas of additional transparency that they need is they need to lay out their plans ahead of time and involve the community in those plans. You know, for instance, if they did that with Centennial, they say, gee, you know, we think we're going to need a reservoir. We want to sit down with the community. Here's what we think the benefits are. Get them in early and talk about these things and bring the community on board along with this. You know, and there's going to be other opportunities for this. We talked about the pipeline for the backbone pipeline for Lake Wildwood, $19 million. It's not a Centennial, but it's a big chunk of money. And they have brought the community along with that, except for, you know, they didn't bring the community along. What was the budgetary impact to NID, and could they afford to carry that out? The other part of that is a little misleading, is that that is just a redundant backup pipeline. That is not a replacement for the Lake Wildwood treatment plant. That is a backup of 2 million gallons a day when you have a 4 million gallon a day plant. So it allows you to do some repairs and things like that. So being more transparent means bring these projects to the community early on before you start spending a lot of money on engineering reports, buying property, investing in equipment and things like that.
Thank you. And Karen, it's your turn.
Well, there's the balance, I think, between engaging the board and the community in specific aspects of NID's work. And, you know, because we have to, I think we do have to empower the NID staff to be able to proceed with their work because they are the experts, and I really do believe that. But at the same time, it seems like there's a disconnect between the priorities of the board and the community, or at least certain members of the board and the community, and that gap could be closed by being more explanatory about where and how and why priorities are set. I do believe that NID is doing a lot of good work, and they need to share information with the public earlier and more often to talk about where our priorities are, describe those priorities, and explain how they fit into a bigger system. You know, I was out meeting with constituents this weekend, and what they talked about, their number one concern is these ongoing rate increases. They simply do not feel connected to NID. So I think it's partly transparency, but it's partly how we're communicating with people. And I feel also that in the area of project planning, we have to have a more overarching and comprehensive approach to how we're investing within NID, and help the public to see where those vulnerabilities are, where the problems are. You know, they just see a rate increase. And so we have to find ways to communicate more about the challenges we have as a district. Thank you.
Thank you. And Scott Miller, you're up.
Again, I'm medicine, often it's delayed gratification. Being on the board is funny too, because I'm not Mr. Socialite. You know, I'm seldom with the media. I don't know. I work full time. And so I was counting coup here, went into Rem's room with, I think it was with Nick. I said, what are we arguing about? Why don't we just do the video? So I just like capping the darn spending on things. I'm a reasonable guy. I listen to the people, kind of like in my opening. You hear people talking. You can be adversarial if you want, or you can just kind of hear, well, that's where they're coming from. So on both those, and then that's how these things happen. So I'm kind of in trouble for doing it? No. That's how we got to the videotaping, literally. And that's how the board works sometimes. Rem was a high energy person. Funny. You'd have to slow him down. The razor wires that went up on Scott's Flat Dam, the board didn't get it from him. Sorry, Rem. I know you're listening, or might be. But the main tool that I've used with all these, we're not talking about the water line extension. We all accept them and say, yeah, we got more fire hydrants, and we did the things that I did to bring infrastructure to my own division. Strategic planning. Jim Chatney used to give it a tip of the hat and we wouldn't do it. Ron Nelson, we were really busy with the FERC, but that's where you get in and you get to, John's been there, we get everybody in there and we do strategic planning. So that's the biggest tool that I've found over the years with some success, that you can get in and kind of work it out and talk with everybody collaboratively. So yeah, no, it's all good, and that's what, I'm glad everybody feels the district has evolved. I'm part of the drive to that. The only incumbent up here, so yeah, as we've evolved, that was Scotty trying to work things behind the scene a little bit with the board, with the rest of the board, and with the general manager. So, all good.
Thank you. And Rich Johansen.
Brian, thank you. Yeah, collaboration, transparency, accessibility, strategic planning, all important. I was asked to be on the land trust to bridge the gap between two diverse groups. We were able to do that. Collaboration is a two-way street. So I'm going to put a little bit of onus on NID, and I'm also going to put some onus on another groups. If you're not going to sit down in good faith and put everything on the table and have your goals, what you're looking to get out of the process, what your overall vision for the community is, then there's going to be mistrust. So if anything comes out of this, is that right now the division in this community has to come together, because divided we're going to fall. And if we can come together and start getting a common vision, and I'll give you an example. During the FERC relicensing, currently we have 7,600 acre feet going into the environment watershed. All for it, fine. That increases to 46,200 acre feet each year on an average. It's a graduating scale. That really takes a lot of water out of farming. and agriculture. It just, no one pays for that water. It goes right on down to basically a Department of Water Resources ends up with it, and it can be taken right to Southern California or the Delta with their choice. But that's not on the table, is it? I mean, everybody talks about Centennial, but what about that water that's flowing out of our district that NID does not get paid for, but Southern California or the Delta gets the benefit of?
Thank you, Tom. Very good. Well, we've apparently caught back up to our schedule. So we're now at the time of closing statements. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to close the evening. And we'll start with just the reverse order of how we started. And John Norton, you'll go first.
Thank you very much. I want to start with my credentials. I am a very experienced person. I have 28 years of working with the State Water Resources Control Board, what you hear mentioned all the time with water regulation in the state of California. I was a manager with the State Water Resources Control Board, and one of my main jobs, besides strategic planning and others, was to solve major problems in the state. And just to give you a couple of examples of problems that I solved, I recognized that the state was having its beaches closed at an unbelievable rate due to bacterial contamination all up and down the coast. I went ahead and put together a plan called the Clean Beaches Initiative that was brought up through the board to the governor's office, and we secured $150 million to go to local agencies so they could control polluted runoff from stormwater going across our beaches into the ocean. And that has reduced dramatically the beach closures up and down the coast. Then an example of collaboration I did, the state was plagued with sewage spills all over the state. Sewer lines are unregulated. Sewage treatment plants that discharge to creeks are regulated. So I went and I said, you know, I think we have a major problem here, and there's no regulatory framework anywhere in the United States to take from. So I went to this sanitation districts that run these sewer lines, and I said, you know, we have a problem. Do you agree we have a problem? So we sat down, and they did. It took us 3 years of collaboration. We worked out a federal NPDES permit at the end that brought all of these agencies up to best industry practices and brought sewage spills down. I want to wrap up with my vision for NID. And in my vision for NID, I see an NID that's open and transparent with its board and with the public. I see an NID that engages the community in its projects and plans ahead of time. I see an NID that restrains on rate increases unless the community desires additional services. I see an NID with adequate reserves that they can face emergencies and control them. I see an NID that uses less pesticides so that it protects our community and our staff. I see an NID that works with the agricultural community to conserve water and sustain our farms and ranches. And I see an NID that works with the U.S. Forest Service, other water districts, and NGOs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Rich, it's your turn.
Okay. So I'm passionate about Nevada County, and my pledge is to be a director for the whole district. Focusing in on Division 5, I like to talk about the Backbone Extension Program because what is not being said is that serves Rough and Ready, 974 customers. Rough and Ready has been paying property taxes to property owners for 100 years, but has not gotten any real service, treated water-wise, from NID. So we can do that project within 2 to 3 years. Take out revenue bonds, put it in. Rough and Ready is also very prone to fires. This project will increase fire hydrant. I mean, I thought it was 35 or 55 new fire hydrants. As this pipeline makes its way to Lake Wildwood, it will also energize the fire hydrants there, because NID has done a lot of work lately. But during the 49er fire, I was on Rough and Ready Road saving 2 homes, and NID treatment plant at Wildwood was running out of water. So, and also puts in a fire escape route for Lake Wildwood customers or people to the east, which is critical. I appreciate all the work John's done at the state. The Central, the State Water Control Board, the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board, has literally cost me thousands of dollars. Because as an organic farmer, I do not have sediment nutrients or pesticides in my system. And yet every year for 17 years, I've had to prove that I'm innocent. And for me, I'm saying, hey guys, we need a habeas corpus case here. Just go back and sue them. It is estimated that the Water Control Board has taken out about $2.5 million from Nevada and Placer County farmers and ranchers. And yet we're pure. We have, Nevada County farmers have not had one bad test. And so it's nice to have all these good water programs, but it's costed us money that we could probably expand our operations with. Conservation, I have put it in. I have the most efficient irrigation system there is with sand media filters, as we were talking about. So I'm going to say that it's one thing to have all this great state experience. Growing up in Northern California, I have a faith in the local community, and especially in Nevada County.
Thank you. And Mr. Miller.
To be clear, I'm in favor of Centennial Reservoir. I've been working on it for the last 6 years. My challenger, who filed protest against the reservoir in 2017, along with Circle and the Foothill Water Network, is against it. And of course, if I've won her over in the course of these debates, that would be great. But I do have a copy of the State Water Board letter, public document. This is not some dated January 2017. It was their response to her protest. So document your sources. In my opening, I spoke about preserving and protecting NID's water rights. We are the area of origin, and by law have the right of first refusal. That's how we won that case against Garden Bar. NID is a water enterprise, and our water rights are the core of the business. Hydro is amazing, powerful, lucrative. However, it is our consumptive water rights that is the heart of NID. Keeping our water and using it locally keeps it from going to LA. Use it or lose it. Not a phrase I've made up, and it's found in California water law. That's what happened with the acceleration on that protest that we put in. So it accelerated us into it. You've known me for 20 years, and experience does count. I will fight to keep NID's water here and out of the Delta tunnels. That's how it goes to LA. With my challenger, you'll be taking your chances with an unproven entity. I appreciate your vote. I'm going to be posting on Facebook page W. Scott Miller, MD for NID, and I'll be posting things in the next couple of weeks here, every other day. Facts and calculations and where I'm coming from. I'm a native Californian, since I have a little time, and I graduated high school in 1975, and that's right in the middle of the benchmark drought of that last century. So yeah, I'm a little sensitive to the climate, the way it's happening. And they were going to put a pipeline across the Richmond Bridge. When you're of that age, you don't always process it fully. I hadn't been to college yet, hadn't been out of my parents' home, but it impressed me. So, boy, I don't know that I have to convince everybody about climate change. It's here. And we need to be agile and adapt to it for our children and our grandchildren's sake. I am passionate about that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Karen Hall.
Last but not least. So NID is a $90 million a year business. They have no competition, and practically speaking, there's nowhere else for us to get our water. So as such, NID really operates a monopoly. And because of this, they have a special obligation to steward the income that they receive from ratepayers. To be successful with this, I see that they need two things. First, we need a board that safeguards the interests of our ratepayers and makes the best decisions for the organization as a whole, and they do this with transparency and openness. They do this with integrity, critical thinking, hard work, and an ability to think broadly and creatively. These are attributes that I would bring to the board. Second, we need an organizational culture at NID where we are optimizing our limited resources. NID senior management and the board need to model this culture in how we invest in projects and manage rates. I have a bachelor's and master's degree from Sacramento State in business administration. I worked at UC Davis for 25 years where I held senior level positions. I ran a $33 million budget, and I oversaw human resources for the entire Davis campus of 16,000 faculty, staff, and students. I'm accustomed to dealing with tough, complex issues, and that's the strength that I would bring. I wanted to highlight that I have two endorsements. I'd like to mention that I have two endorsements. Actually, I want to say that differently. I have many endorsements, but I want to highlight two tonight. And one is from Nancy Weber. She is a 20-year NID retired board member, and she is choosing to endorse me. Also, I have an endorsement from Tim Crow, who is the retired NID Assistant General Manager, and he writes, "The district needs new leadership to guide it back to sound fiscal policies. I am supporting Karen Hull for Division III Director. She has a strong background in fiscal management, leadership, and most importantly, she has integrity. We need Karen to help rebuild NID." These endorsements reflect my ability to be a valuable member of the NID board. I ask for your vote in the November election for NID Division III, and for more information about me and to see my platform, please look at Karen Hull, the number 4, NID.com, and I want to end by thanking all of the media for coordinating this event and being here tonight out of your evening to help spread the word about this important election. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank all 4 of you candidates for not just coming tonight, but also stepping up to serve our community. It's a very important thing that we do that and that we have choices, and I appreciate all of you doing that. I also want to thank all my colleagues with the media for joining this. You know, in Nevada County, for a small community we are here in Western County, we are blessed by a number of media entities to provide us with news and information about this community. And I just hope that our community doesn't take that for granted. Just a little bit of an editorial comment here. Support the local media that supports this community. Don't take it for granted. We don't want to lose that. And with that, I'll just say thank you. Get out and vote. They did their job. It's your turn to do yours. Thank you, and good night.